Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Musical Talk. My name is Nick Hudson. Last week I said this week we'd be having an interview with Marisha Wallace, but we're going to bump that up to next week because I had a chat with Antonia about the Oliviers and also her mourning the loss of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which recently had its final episode. Also, we'll be hearing the second part of Michael Shapiro's kind of developer diary of his musical The Bully Problem. So, two fun chats. Let's get the show on the road. Hello, Tonya.
Hello.
How are you?
Tired.
Tired. Tell us what you've just done.
Oh, well, it's the last day of term today. I wrote my own play and we performed it at school, so I'm knackered.
Did it go well?
Yeah, really good.
I said this week we'll be having an interview with Marisha Wallace, but we're bumping that up until next week because I want to chat with you, Tonya, about the Olivier Awards that we had last week, I guess-ish.
The weekend, yeah.
Yeah, and as usual, it's very exciting, but the major bugbear that I and you, and probably you listener, have with it is why isn't it broadcast live on television?
Oh, it really annoys me. I don't know why they don't broadcast it.
It doesn't seem like we're taking the industry seriously. I know we don't really do awards in this country. You know, it's not the level of the Tonys or anything like that, but
the Americans take the Tonys so seriously.
Yeah.
And it's such a massive event, and the Oliviers is our equivalent.
Yes.
So it would be lovely to actually make it a thing, to actually see it broadcast and actually be made as much of a thing. Tony Award nomination or win can make or break a show, whereas I can't say the same about the Olivier Awards.
No, doesn't really make any difference at all.
No.
I'm still up for the Tonya Awards. I think that sounds like a wonderful thing. The big winner this year was Come From Away. We're not giving anything away because you can find out the winners. Did you watch the broadcast at all, Tonya?
No, I didn't. I actually didn't even listen to it on the radio this year. I've just been too busy. So
you can listen to it live on the radio. You can't watch it on television. And then sort of immediately after it's aired, they slice together a compilation and they whack it out for broadcast. Now, I flicked through it recently. We started with The Lion King, which is always nice, celebrating its 9 millionth year playing in the West End, which is good. And then they often do clips from all the shows that are nominated for awards. So we had Tina, Come From Away, Fun Home, we had a bit from, and Six. I haven't seen Six. Do you have any appeal? Does Six hold any appeal for you? Six listeners?
Yeah, I've listened to Six. It's a bit like Hamilton in the sense that it's history told through modern music, but a bit more of a feminist slant on it. It's about how, the women that Henry VIII married are just remembered by that rhyme, divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. And they play on that and they riff on that, and it's the story of each wife told in their own words and that kind of sort of thing, as opposed to told from the point of view of Henry VIII or a man's point of view. So it's quite an interesting show, and it was obviously an Edinburgh Fringe production.
Produced by George Stiles.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was the West End transfer.
I think it possibly was.
He spotted their potential, and then it's become a really big thing.
Yeah.
It's very popular with young people. Every single queen has a different sound.
Okay.
So one of them is inspired by Adele. One of them is sort of inspired by Ariana Grande. They've got different pop sounds.
Sounds
depending
dreadful.
On the girls. It's actually the song that I know from Six is the song Six,
which they did at the Olivier Awards.
Yeah, which is a good song. It's a good pop song. I'm not sure if it is really a legitimate musical because it's, unlike Hamilton, it doesn't seem to have much narrative drive. The only narrative is that these women have come together and are trying to outdo each other with who has the worst sob story, and then they sing their song, which explains their relationship with Henry VIII.
Are they ghosts, or are they at a...
No, they're not ghosts.
Are they at a King's Anonymous meeting? Or...
I don't know. I actually have not seen it, but from what I can get from the gist of it, it's not a traditional musical in structure. It's not a book musical.
No.
It's got a music concert. A
review.
It's got a sort of story, so yeah, I guess you could say it's sort of like a review meets a musical. It's basically a pop concert setting with a small narrative thread and themes such as history and her story and what those mean.
Well, sounds very of the time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Which is good.
It's very in line with current politics. And I think that's why it was nominated for the Outstanding Achievement in Music Award as opposed to Best Musical, because I'm not sure you could really legitimately call it a musical.
I think it's lovely that they're finally acknowledging music in the Olivier Awards, because it wasn't a thing that really existed, and we thank our friend Mike Dixon for championing that one, this effort. But what does achievement in music mean?
It is a little bit strange because it's kind of like it doesn't go to anyone specific.
Is it for the whole music team?
Well, yeah, it's for the whole music team, but it's kind of it's odd though, because why is that any different from Best Musical?
Well, I think Best Musical is like Best Picture of the Oscars. It's the kind of one to be.
But then there'll be another award being Outstanding Achievement in Pictures.
Yeah, but
So
we don't have Outstanding Achievement in Acting.
No.
We don't have Outstanding Achievement in Lighting. We have Best Lighting. We have Best Actor or Actress. But why don't we have Best Music?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Why is it called Achievement in Music?
Yeah.
And it's dedicated to all those people that are involved in the creative team who would win if they would nominate for Best Musical. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It should be Best Orchestrations or Best Score.
Yeah. Company won Best Revival, which is
Isn't a surprise.
very, very good. Rosalie Craig sung Being Alive very, very well. And a lovely band on stage, orchestra led by Larry Blank. And Patti LuPone won for Best Supporting Actress, and she didn't yell at the cameraman for filming her, which was quite good of her.
The Jonathan Bailey was Best Supporting Role. And then Best Actor was from the Tina Turner musical.
Yes, and also the wonderful Sharon D. Clarke gave a wonderful performance of a wonderful song from Caroline Will Change, which is playing at the Playhouse Theatre.
And she won Best Actress.
It's nice that, obviously, last year, the H show was kind of, let's just going to win everything, so there's no really point doing these awards. Whereas this year, we have a nice, fresh look at it, and it's nice that Come From Away won. I don't think we're expecting Come From Away to win everything, were we?
I don't know. I've not seen it yet. I've only heard a bit of the cast recording, but from what I can gather is people really into this. Someone I work with was raving about it, saying how wonderful it was. I know it's very poignant in America. Obviously, Broadway, I think it was quite popular. It's because it's very poignant and something that a lot of American people can relate to. And the lady I work with is indeed American, so she finds it very, very moving. She was able to engage with the story a lot because she remembers exactly where she was when 9/11 happened.
Who doesn't? It's a lovely show. It's very, very sweet. And as everyone has said, it is the show we need right about now. And it's wonderfully performed. The music is very good.
It's also an ensemble piece.
Oh, it's very much an ensemble piece.
People like ensemble pieces, I think.
Everyone plays two parts. Some people play more, which is great. What do you think of Porgy and Bess winning opera over other more traditional
Which
opera
production was
pieces?
Porgy and Bess, was it?
The London Coliseum.
Oh, the one. What's quite nice about this production is the fact that they've gone to a lot of effort to make sure that the cast is exactly the ethnicity that it should be.
What would you like to see happen in the Olivier Awards next year?
To stop mushing together Best Director category for both plays and musicals. I find that really odd. Why did you have Best Director of a play, Best Director of a musical?
Because it would
I find
go
that
on
really strange.
Ever.
Oh, but then they've got all these other pointless awards. Like, come on.
No award is pointless, Tonya.
Well, then why don't they have a Best Score?
When Best Musical wins, generally the writer, if they're there, of the show will give the acceptance speech.
But they do for Outstanding Achievement in Music, so it really annoys
bizarre.
me.
Anyway, that's our little Olivier Awards discussion. Tonya, you've recently drawn close to a massive TV show in your life, haven't you?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So last weekend was the series finale, the last ever Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah. But Rachel Bloom is giving concerts at the London Palladium, isn't she? Which we hopefully go and see.
Which is brilliant, because I think people have been tweeting her for years, but come to England, come to England.
You mean you've been tweeting her for years?
No, I haven't. But I tempted to, but everyone's been doing it on my behalf, so it's fine.
And she's doing songs with...
Adam Slettinger.
I was going to say Jonathan Groff then for a second, but no, he's in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, isn't he?
No, he's in Glee.
Glee, same thing. So tell me about the season series finale, as we say in this country.
So there's been 4 series. This is the end of the 4th series, and obviously
Spoilers ahead, listener.
Yeah, be warned, there are spoilers in this. If you've not seen Crazy Ex-Girlfriend finale and you're a massive fan, stop listening now.
No, don't stop listening now. Listen now. Well, skip forward 10 minutes.
Well, it'll take longer than 10 minutes. Who knows?
Oh, goody, right.
Yeah. So 4 series. It was only ever meant to be 4 series. Each series has its own sort of section of the arc of Rebecca's story. Rebecca is the ingenue, the heroine of the story. Or hero, depending if you're being...
True.
So if you've watched Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, you'll know that it's not a traditional rom-com or a traditional musical comedy. It takes the idea of a musical comedy or a rom-com and turns it on its head. So you've got a heroine who is obviously not well mentally, and it examines why that is and how she can make her life better, and examines rom-com and musical theatre stereotypes and tropes along the way. And
Successfully?
Yeah, I think so. I would argue it gets really dark in its 3rd season. Like the first 2 series in particular are really kooky, kind of, it's a really kooky musical comedy. Like it sets it up really well. It sets up all the tropes that you expect in a rom-com, and then in the next 2 series dismantles them completely. The 3rd series is quite heavy going because that's the one where the character has her breakdown, her spiral. She spirals out of control, and ends up in prison. Spoiler alert.
But does it keep the comedy, or does it get a bit? Oh, this is not what I signed up for.
And that's why this show works really well, because it deals with mental illness in a comedic way. I mean, there are really quite difficult moments to watch. There is the scene where Rebecca commits suicide. Well, she tries to commit suicide on a plane, and she takes all these pills, and that was really difficult to watch. But the way that the show deals with mental illness, there are moments of light and shade. It's not all heavy going, it's light and shade. But I would say that the 3rd series, comparatively to the first 2 seasons, is quite difficult to watch at times. And then the 4th series is a redemption arc. It's how she takes control of her life. And the great thing about the 4th series...
And does it return to the tone of the 1st and 2nd series?
Yes, I would say so. Particularly in the last 4 episodes, you can see a real full circle sort of thing in the rom-com stereotypes. So we are set up from the beginning to ship relationships. Do you know what shipping a relationship is?
Yes, but tell us, for those of you who don't know.
If you're a shipper, or you ship a couple in a TV show, you really want 2 characters specifically to get together, like Ross and Rachel, or Jess and Nick in New Girl. Like 2 characters that are meant to be together, destined to be together, really want to be together. Don't quite, like Ross and Rachel are kind of like they only ever get together right at the last minute, and it's this grapple between them for the whole of like 8 seasons of 10 seasons of Friends or whatever it is. It's the same with Rebecca. She moves to West Covina to be with Josh, and she, basically stalks him essentially. But it's done in such endearing way, and there couldn't possibly be anything wrong with Rebecca because she's so, she, like the 2nd series says, she's a girl in love. She can't be responsible for her actions, that sort of thing. And rom-com stereotypes kind of set you up for that whole kind of she's meant to be with this person sort of way. And there were like love triangles, and by the end of the 4th series there are 3 love interests, so she's in a love quadrangle instead of love triangle, which is what she's in the 1st series. And it really sets you up to expect her to end up with someone, and the way it completely dismantles the rom-com musical comedy tropes is by Rebecca ends up with no one in the end. She decides to follow her dreams, which is to become a songwriter. She decides to work on herself, and because she doesn't feel like she can be in a relationship with anyone until she's completely happy in herself, and that's the decision she makes at the end. She doesn't end up with anyone, despite the fact that built up this expectation that she has to end up with someone. And the whole idea of the last episode is that women's stories in rom-coms and a lot of films are that once the female protagonist falls in love, that's the end of her story. So the whole way that the last episode is written is like it's like the whole 4 series has been sort of prequel to Rebecca's life.
Okay.
Like that was like one part of her story, and then the next bit is it's a new story. But we don't obviously get to see that bit. We only see the story so far.
And you don't think that was done as we sort of could continue this? But...
No, they're definitely not going to continue it. And this is why it's so well written. This is why they set up the comedy and the rom-com stereotypes so well, and the tropes so well, because I know this on Twitter, because if you type Crazy Ex-Girlfriend into Twitter, you see I'm Team Josh, or I'm Team Greg, or I'm Team Nathaniel, and everyone has like got their own team, and we're all shipping these relationships. Like at first I was a Nathaniel and Rebecca shipper. I was like, I really want them to be together, and then I was like, no, it's Greg, because Greg calls her the love of his life, and it's like, oh my god. But this is it. She doesn't end up with any of them. But the last episode, you could see that's the reason it had to happen, because that's been the whole idea of the series so far, that she doesn't end up with anyone.
So you didn't feel cheated?
No, not at all. I was really worried, because I was a bit like, she has to end up with Greg. I mean, he's like endgame. But she doesn't have to end up with Greg, and it's not the end of her story, and she's like a whole person, and a complete person, and a happy person, and they leave it open-ended, so she could end up with any of those guys, realistically. But we should be happy that Rebecca's happy in herself, and that she's managed to sort out her life and she's become happy in the end, as opposed to not quite 100% feeling happy in herself and getting involved in a relationship with another person and never being happy in the future. Like, we leave the story knowing that Rebecca's a heck of a lot happier than she was when we met her in the opening pilot episode, and that's the perfect ending for this show, really, as opposed to her ending up with someone.
Did it have a big finale ending, or did
No.
it? So did it, like so many things, forget it was a musical?
No, it didn't forget it was a musical. There were 1 or 2 episodes in the 4th series where there was only one song, which I thought was a bit of a shame. And I did think some of the music in series 3 and 4 was a little bit under par compared to series 1 and 2. I mean, there was some really witty stuff. Like, I really enjoyed
Well, you sent me a Guys and Dolls
parody, which is Love's Not a Game, and all her friends are betting on her love life and who's going to be endgame for Rebecca. And I thought that was great, because it could have almost been Look for Your Lady Tonight, but it wasn't. Yeah. So I mean, it was great. That was really well done. It was a great big group number. That was the big pizzazz number. They saved it for the penultimate episode. The final episode has no massive showstopper, and I was really surprised. I expected a massive pizzazz sort of, the opening was Covina. But
then you're going with the concept of this is a musical, and if the final episode broke away from that, you can see why they didn't have a massive number at the end.
No, but they had lots of reprises throughout the last few episodes to try and tie it up like musicals have reprises. They had an 11 o'clock number. In fact, the whole point of one of the songs is the fact that it's at 11 o'clock. Rebecca realises she's got to pick one of these boys that she wants to be with by the end of the day, and it's 11 o'clock and she has no idea who she wants to be with. So they play on that whole, it's 11 o'clock and I'm in a massive panic and I don't know who I'm going to be with at 11 o'clock tonight. I didn't know who I wanted to do 11 o'clock yesterday, and it becomes her big 11 o'clock number.
Which show do you think that parodied?
It didn't. It was...
so it wasn't Gypsy or anything?
No. But it was the idea of an 11 o'clock number, and how all Broadway musicals have an 11 o'clock number. And that's when the heroine has a revelation. And she was like, I have no revelation. This is my 11 o'clock number. Rebecca, in the end, she has this 11 o'clock number, and Paula, her best friend, helps her figure out that actually her future is songwriting. We've seen hints of this throughout the series so far, that she gets involved in this community theatre and she ends up singing this song, which is really old-fashioned, so she decides to change the lyrics herself. And so she gets the writing bug, and she decides that she'll become a songwriter, and Paula, her best friend, helps her come to that decision. And that's the decision she decides to make, that she decides to become a songwriter. And you see like her... There's like a little like future flash forward where she's having singing lessons, she's having piano lessons, she's writing songs and all that kind of sort of stuff, as opposed to ending up with a guy. So that's her decision. She goes to every single one of the guys and she says, I'm not going to end up in a relationship with you because I want to pursue my dream.
And has Rachel Bloom ever commented on that this is sort of semi-autobiographical for her?
Yeah, I think so. I think there are people on the writing team who've talked about taking antidepressants. I know that Rachel Bloom suffered with anxiety, so there's like those elements of mental health in there, and obviously she was interested in becoming a songwriter, all those kind of stuff. So I think it's semi-autobiographical, but I don't think Rebecca is based on her.
Okay. Thank God for that.
She's not crazy. That's the whole point of the show, Nicholas. She's lovely, and that's the great thing. Like, she does some really crazy stuff in the first few episodes or series, where you kind of think like that would be like a lot of people would be like back off and be like, "Well,
she's
that's
crazy.
weird."
She's as crazy as Elle Woods from Legally Blonde to follow someone to Harvard and just to be with them.
Yeah, but then she examines that, and the thing is, Rebecca is a nice person. She's a nice character. She's not, but she's not also not. And that's the whole point. There's a whole new theme tune.
Disney villain.
She's multifaceted. She is like we all are. We all have good and bad traits. That's the great thing about Rebecca. She's a real character. She's three-dimensional. She's got layers to her. She's not just rom-com heroine who just like blah, blah, blah,
Do that
like
again?
Elle Woods. Yeah, exactly. But she's not like that. She's like a real character.
So of the songs, when you think of the show, what songs now, you've seen them all and heard them all and you might listen to them in your spare time, which, I don't know, top 3 songs for you?
I can't pick a top 3. I could probably pick a top 5.
Or top couple?
I really like, so the last series, there were a couple of, I like the Guys and Dolls parody, which is Love's Not a Game, because it was a great last group number. I mean, cinematically, it was filmed fantastically. It was very inventive choreography and, directed really well. And the choreography was amazing. The music was amazing. It all came together. That's what I like about Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, when all the elements come together to make a really, really good. I really liked Greg's song from series 4 called I Hate Everything But You. It was a Bruce Springsteen power ballad type thing, and it is a really, really good number. And obviously Greg was recast for series 4. It was no longer Santina Fontana.
Was that weird?
No, because they played on that.
Okay.
Greg was unrecognisable to Rebecca because he changed himself so much. Like, they played on that when he came back.
Remember Fresh Prince of Bel-Air did that for the mum?
Yeah.
And she's in the first episode of series 3 or something as a new actress playing the same character, and they have so many jokes about that.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing. They play with that trope as opposed to like, it's just like, they'd gloss over it. They kept picking up on it, so it was quite funny. But that was the one point where the new Greg, even though they're the same character, really solidified as real Greg. It was such a Greg song to sing. Up until that point, I was a bit like, this character seems like a completely different character. But then I was like, no, it's Greg. It's definitely Greg, because Greg would sing that.
And it probably seemed weird to you to go back to the original now and watch the original person play him.
Yeah. It is a little bit strange, but the way that they handled it kind of makes it not
It's just
strange.
like having a musical, someone else then
Sets
play the
into
role.
Exactly. Yeah. Obviously, I really liked Settle For Me in the first series because it's a Fred and Ginger number. And Tap That Ass, obviously, for the
I agree.
Singing in the Rain parody. Moses Supposedly Singing in the Rain parody, which is great. And I really like the Marilyn Monroe Love Triangles number, which comes back in series 4. I love Let's Generalise About Men, which I've written on the Musical Talk blog.
Did you like any of the poppier songs, or did you skip through those?
No. I like those too. There's a really good Beyonce parody, and like a Lemonade parody in the second series called Love Kernels, which is basically a Beyonce video, and the joke in it is that it was so expensive to shoot they used up all their production budget.
I remember the Disney villain song, which I remember enjoying, which was quite fun.
Because it just sounds like it's written by Alan Menken. It's a really good parody.
Yeah. I didn't like, of the episodes I've seen, I didn't like the Les Mis parody.
No. It was the only time I think they've ever taken something really trite. Normally they do a genre like that you don't expect. Rachel Bloom's talked about how when they did the song about Daryl coming out as bi, they didn't do a jaunty musical theatre number.
Country rock song, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. It was a Huey Lewis
of course
parody, which was a bit more unexpected because you would expect him to do a big camp musical theatre number, but
we've had enough of those in the show, so it wouldn't really...
They haven't had that many in the show, but it departs from what you expect, whereas I thought that protest song was a little bit too much of an obvious choice. Occasionally they would come up with an idea you just think, oh, it was a bit
Like, I was happy with the Billy Joel parody.
Yes, and that makes him a reappearance in Series 4 as well.
Oh, lovely. Well, I might watch the rest of it.
You need to watch the rest of it. I've just spoiled the ending for
That's
you.
all right. But would you be happy if they did decide to resume it?
Yeah, but it wouldn't be necessary. Obviously, I would take as many episodes of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend you could possibly give me. And that reminds me, they did a lovely concert special, which was filmed a couple of weeks before the finale aired. That was basically shown directly after, and it's on Netflix as well.
Always sad to see the end of a TV show.
I'm sad to see the end of a TV show that puts musical theatre and like a musical TV show right at the forefront. We don't get that very often.
No.
I know we did go for a bit of phase of that with Glee and Smash, but they weren't. Glee, after a few series, became less popular, and Smash didn't last more than 2 series. Or
one series, depending on what your outlook on it was.
Rachel Bloom won a Golden Globe for that, and you know, come on, it's like.
What's interesting is that Disney have recently announced their streaming service to start in America and hopefully come to the rest of the world. And as we've always said on this show, Disney are the biggest pushers of musicals in the world. So I know they're planning a High School Musical brand as a TV show.
Right.
Who knows what musicals they will present us with, which is quite exciting. I know they've announced a live-action remake of Lady and the Tramp to be exclusive to the streaming service.
Jeez, another one. Saying that, the Lion King trailer made me nearly cry because the music they use in it is my favourite pieces of music from the original animated
Sounds
film.
like Gabriel's oboe from The Mission, but never mind. Well, I can tell Tonya wants to end this episode because she's looking at her route home. So thank you very much, Tonya, for chatting to me.
I need to get a shift on. I've got to go home.
About your crazy ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, I know. Can I just say, like, I don't think I've ever been this invested in a show, or this upset when a show finished. I was like really depressed on Saturday. I was like, oh, my favourite TV show. But it's not just the fact that it was my favourite TV show. It was the fact that it was a musical theatre TV show.
Yes.
And that show has been like I'm not just going to say addictive. It was so engaging and so much a part of my life for the past 3 or 4 years. I'm obsessed with the music. I always will be obsessed with the music. I will continue to rewatch it on Netflix forever and ever and ever. If you were to put the tag in on Twitter, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, you would see how much of a cult hit the show is because it has a massive audience online. It was trending because the finale was trending because people are really sad that the show's ending. I'm really sad and grateful though because it was a real treat.
Well, thank you for Netflix for letting us.
And Rachel Bloom.
And Rachel Bloom, of course. And everyone else. And thank you, Tonya, for waxing so local about it again.
Bye!
Hello, Musical Talk listeners. This is Mike Shapiro, and I'm here with another installment of my diary-like episodic description of the process of my bringing my musical The Bully Problem to its first premiere production at the Hollywood Fringe this summer. This is a series of short, little reflective, autobiographical segments meant to give you just a sense of what it's like to bring an independent musical to a Fringe festival. I wanted to provide a perspective on the process of developing the show that would be interesting to someone who isn't me. So I'm trying to extract from my body of experience some general ideas and some generalizable experiences that other people could connect to. And what I want to talk about this week is how I got to this point, the path I took to prepare this show so that it was ready to be presented to the public. One of the dirty secrets about musical theater is that it's really hard to write a book musical. It's very hard to tell a story through music, and it's deceptively difficult in that the thing you put down on paper and the songs you write seem to be more effective and seem to be better than they are. And it really takes some kind of approximation of a performance before you really understand what you've got, or whether your story is working, whether the songs are landing home, whether you're spending too much time with secondary characters. There are all these nitty-gritty details that are endemic to musical storytelling, and you can't really anticipate how those are going to play out until you beta test your show. So prior to this production, I had what are called workshops, which are approximations of performances. These manifested as actors on stage in front of an audience with scripts in hand. They had practiced the show, they'd rehearsed the show, but they didn't have to be off book. They didn't have to memorize anything. There was some degree of blocking, of stage motion, but there wasn't full choreography per se. So what you do in this case is you get elements of a real production. You get the sense of pacing. You get the sense of the characters interacting. You get the sense of where the songs are falling and what their emotional impact is. And if you have an audience there, you get some of the sense of the audience energy. Are they laughing at the right jokes? Are they laughing at points that aren't actually jokes? Are they laughing at things that were actually ad-libs from the performers that you don't really get to take credit for? There's all these really interesting dynamics, and it only comes from the magical interaction of the actors reading your lines and singing your songs in front of real human beings in real time. Now, one area in which the workshops will differ from a real performance is that you need some degree of narration. You need to explain certain kind of stage action to the audience, which in a full production you obviously don't need to do. You don't have to say, and now they're at the laundromat, because you'll see it because of the backdrop on the set. But you do need to do this during a workshop if you've just got a bunch of actors reading scripts. So this is one area where the workshop doesn't quite capture the pacing of a real show, and you have to mentally adjust for that. You have to say, okay, the narrator just spent 20 seconds describing the scenery, and that's not going to happen in the real show. So the real show will actually be faster and zippier there and may not dawdle quite as much. So there's an art to staging a workshop production and trying to translate the experience into something that will reflect upon how the real show is going to go. Back to my autobiographical account, we had 2 workshops of the show, both of which were vital in my sculpting this piece down to a point where I felt it was ready to go in front of the paying public. The first one was an informal but audience-invited production workshop, I should say, at an organization called New Musicals, Inc., which is a developmental organization here in Los Angeles that also does some production work. And it was just a room with a bunch of chairs and a bunch of music stands and a bunch of actors who were flipping through pages of a book. And we gave out feedback forms to the audience. We asked for feedback, which was surprisingly diverse in the sense that everyone had a different opinion, and it was difficult to try to find commonalities among all the opinions. But it was really useful in that it told me things like, hey, your show is probably 2.5 hours long. That is way too long. You have all these ancillary subplots that you don't need. You have all these characters that you can just get rid of because they don't really bear upon the essence of the show. The second workshop was a little more formal. It was the ASCAP Musical Theater Workshop that is run by Stephen Schwartz. So this was another case where we have actors holding scripts on stage and singing to piano accompaniment. And this time it was in a fancy theater in Beverly Hills, and the workshop was adjudicated by Stephen Schwartz, the composer-lyricist of shows like Wicked and Prince of Egypt, et cetera, et cetera. This is something they do every year on both coasts of the United States, one in LA, one in New York. When I say every year, I really mean most years. Sometimes Stephen's too busy to hold one. And you get to present the show in front of several hundred of your closest friends and strangers, and Stephen Schwartz gives feedback. And our show was one of 2 that were selected last year in 2018 for this presentation. And the feedback you get from this workshop is interesting. You have a much larger audience, and you've got a celebrity panel of judges who are weighing in, but they're only seeing the first 45 minutes. So it's an interesting trial by fire because you don't get the benefit of telling the full story. You're really giving them a first impression of some or most of your first act. Stephen and his panel gave a lot of notes, and in some cases I wanted to say, hey, just wait till you get to the ending of the show. It'll address all these things you brought up. But really, it's very valuable to hear someone weigh in on your first act because that's what the audience is going to experience first. And if your first act isn't really selling the story, then it doesn't really matter if an hour later you deliver some point that you were building up to. These 2 workshops were the 2 hoops I jumped through to get this show lean and mean down to 90 minutes and in a shape where I felt the story was very effective and the songs were falling in the right place. And it was generally ready to be brought forward for the commercial production to which we are building right now. It was a lot of work, a lot of rewriting, but that which did not kill me made me stronger. This is a very good process for anyone who wants to develop a musical because it really helps you approximate the performance by degrees and see how your show is going to work before you put in all the time and monetary investment into staging and actual production. That is all the time I have for today. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about the show, I encourage you to visit us online at www.thebullyproblem.com. And that's all one word. Till next time, this is Mike Shapiro signing off.
For more information about Musical Talk, please visit our website at musicaltalk.co.uk. You can email us at feedback@musicaltalk.co.uk, listen to past episodes on iTunes and YouTube, and follow our social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.